Good. This is a presentation about maybe not to develop a roguelike. It's about my first roguelike project, Dungeon Hunter. It was planned to be a roguelike engine. I think that's how many people start, and I wanted to make it like easy to use, like RPG Maker 2000, but even more people should use it, make their own games for me, because I don't want to add the content. So, I didn't have a GUI, so the first thing I did, because the only language I knew by that time was Blitz Basic. It's a basic dialect based mainly for games. It has the advantage that in order to have some graphical output, you just type graphics and then a screen resolution, and then you can start to draw sprites, and it's as easy as this. But it didn't have a GUI, so I couldn't do a map editor. So I started by making a GUI, programming my own GUI. I don't know if the code is in here. Game A-Star Editor. Was there? Right, thanks. Okay, so before I even had the first ad walking on my screen, or before I had a map editor, I had to write 1,388 of code. But then, pretty quickly, after another 2 years, I had my editor, but I think if I... Mode true. No, go to the editor. No, it doesn't. Okay, you see, I didn't touch it in a long time. I don't even know how to start the editor, but I think it was just here. Start editor.
Mode maybe.
/true.
Hi.
Hi.
This is roguelike?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
We are paused. Hi. I'm taking two.
Okay.
Sorry, let's go on.
Okay, I'm just doing I'm just doing a presentation about maybe how to not to develop a roguelike.
Okay.
It's about my first project. Okay, here you see the editor. This is my self-made GUI. You see here, you see buttons and a lot of stuff, scroll down stuff, but you have to imagine before I can write the actual roguelike, I had to do all the stuff. So, can get a memory access violation, for example. Maybe, I don't know what the last game was that I touched, but probably Tower Quest. Wow, works. Okay, here you see the editor. Okay, pretty empty world map. I don't think I made anything in there. You can select stuff, draw your own maps, and it was supposed to be a mixture between preset maps, especially the overworld map, upper left, upper middle, 9 overworld maps that you can pre-design, and then you can like make a map number 9 and later define that dungeon XY consists of 5 random levels, then the preset level number 9, and then again 5 random levels. The dungeons themselves were supposed to be scripted, so you write down like dungeon name in bracelets and write down which enemies you want in there, how the level should be designed, maximum, minimum room size. But since I didn't know that there was already a scripting language you could use in Blitz Basic, I wrote my own scripting language. Another 1,000 lines of code and about 1 year. So I had my scripting language, and now I just had to add some content. And the directories are, when you start the editor, the directories are created automatically and the files are created automatically. So you can start by editing, for example, the DNG file, it's the dungeon file. GAM is the main game file where you set main options, item file, NPC file for monsters. Let's have a look at the dungeon file. Okay, here you can see a pattern, so no special dungeons, everything is not set. But here you have a dungeon, which is actually a small town called Woodheim. You set the variable start level. If you enter this dungeon from the overworld map, you go to level 1, and level 1 is from map 9. This would mean that you have a pre-edited map at place 9, so you can just have this, or you can make your own, define your own random levels, where you tell the style it should have rooms, not like cliffs or organic caves like in IRDC game. The room width should be 223. Decorations, these are chips in a chip file and chipset, so graphical tiles which decorate the dungeon. You can tell how many enemies, which enemies, when do some more enemies can get in there, how many items, how many of those items are in chests, stuff like that. Which prefixes can the items have, and if it's preceded by an AND, it's a set of items. So you see it all gets very complicated and is totally not as usable as, for example, RPG Maker 2000 or something like that. So I had to write my own manual for creating games, and just 1,900 lines explaining.
I have a question. Did you also write the markup language of this manual?
No, I didn't. No. But I wrote a markup language for Ultra 32, so that your own code files which you edit are you can, like this. For example, you can do this. That's an add-on for Ultra 32, which I also had to write. So here, and after I did all this, I had my ad on the screen, and yeah, then I lost interest in the game because I found out it had no real specialties to it. That was when I decided to add a scripting language to make it more interesting, to make more interesting items. The scripting language is described here at the end of the manual file, and it looks pretty easy from the descriptions, but when you have a look at the actual scripts, you will see it's not that easy. The scripts are located in the game file as not events. So this is how you script an even. For example, that's for a spell, for a summoning spell. That's the name of the procedure you want to call. Plus and C stands for no condition. If you have a condition, you have also a strict syntax for the condition. For example, this is a condition, an if condition, and it's made like this, that you have, when you have minus, you're closing your block, and you have to have the exact name, which is the condition. So if you change this condition, you have to change it down there. Very comfortable. Yeah, and the scripting language itself is also pretty complicated, but it works in the end. Kind of, but every time I start a new game, I write down like $5 or 10 in some cases. Okay, here you can select which module you want to start. So you saw I had 4 directories in my games directory. Those are the 4 modules. We choose Tower Quest. I think that's the only one that still works due to version changes. So we choose to start a new game. We choose our only race, which is human. You get a description for human, which is from the game file. Choose this race. We choose our only class. It's a farmer. Okay, we choose a name. I don't.
Thank you.
Here we give him some strength. It's our first level up, and we're ready to start the game. As you can see, we are not starting at the overworld map. I realized that by doing an event which starts before the actual game starts, which teleports you into the dungeon, so you don't have to enter the dungeon, because I wanted to have a mono dungeon, so a single dungeon, which makes the whole overworld map logic, game logic, pretty senseless. So this is a randomly designed cave. I don't know exactly what I chose, but that's one of the enemies that can appear inside this dungeon. Yeah, and from that on it's a pretty standard roguelike. It has 8 directional movement. I'm just moving in 4 directions because I'm on my laptop. The items that enemies leave are also listed in a file, and it's a lot of work to add stuff to it, because if you want to add an enemy, you might also want to give him equipment, give him some items that he might drop, but you don't have the items, so you have to make the items, and it's graphical, so you might not have the graphics for the items you want, so it takes always a lot of time. And if I'm thinking about a new feature in the game, I don't want to hard code it, but make it possible to do this, to add this feature through the scripting language. So I have to change the scripting language, or add this command to the scripting language, to the event language, describe it in the manual, and then write it in the game, and then test the new feature, and that's too tedious, and my hopes are low that I am going to continue this, but I'm often getting back to it. How do I pick up items?
Did you think about the non-tiles interface? We have one tiles and one just with letters? That will separate the work.
It's actually in there. I started this. Okay, how do I leave the game? Yes. I'm wondering where I have this. ASCII mode.
Now we see your implementation of courses.
Yes. Okay, here you can't see it. Menus are still, sorry, menus are still like this. Same game again, sorry.
You should have written your own operating system.
Yeah, my own numeric system, and what else?
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So that's ASCII view. You can see it's not quite finished. The brushes are still the normal graphics, but it's in there. as you can see.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, I don't want ASCII for ASCII's sake, but in this way you have less work if you want to add something. I mean,
Yeah.
you can just do it for this and test it.
That's why I added it. Yes, that's right.
And I mean, if someone gets excited, perhaps you can split the work. So somebody's doing tiles and...
That's right.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
the projects get bigger, I think yours is pretty big. And
Yeah. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to finish the ASCII mode. And the point where I stopped was when I tried to add there are animations when you do spells. I don't know if I have something in my inventory or if I have a skill. I have to learn the skill. So there's pretty much stuff implemented already, but very few content, and that's the point I wanted to make. I'm so fed up with the whole engine that I don't actually add content to the game. Okay, Poison Bolt is now on level 1, so now we can use it. Not enough SP. Fine. Okay, I can't show you the Poison Bolt, and the animations wouldn't show up anyway. So.
But they are there.
Okay, that was my first project. Now I'm just giving a sneak preview to my new project, which was made in a... Thanks, what's up? Which was made in another approach. What I'm still doing is I have a to-do.txt. I don't use version control or anything like that. Small txt file suffices, and this game I mainly do like add eye candies, add enemies, add stuff, so I don't get fed up with my own game. And I used an already existing engine, which is the TCOD engine. I mentioned that before. And so I didn't even have to worry about graphics and stuff. It's very easy to use, you can start right away. It has field of view implemented already, so you don't have to write that again. I wrote my own pathfinding, which came out the next version. But yeah, it's to mention your presentation again, Jeff. It's a real-time roguelike, but actually it's just your turn is skipped if you don't have an action in the action queue. If you enter a command, your action gets into the action queue, and every frame a ticker for every creature is counted down, and if it reaches 0, the creature can do an action, and if it has an action in queued, the action is performed. And then you have a small amount of time where you can do no action.
Yeah, I ran into that playing Hive Awakening where I'd be on a screen asking me to choose what option I wanted next. And in the background, an enemy came up and attacked me and killed me. And I wasn't very happy.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to make it so that you can pause the game at any time. 1 failed, 9 errors. What the hell? Okay. Count units. Okay, I played it yesterday and you made a video as a proof. Okay. These errors don't really make sense. I could show you the video, but
Looks like you're missing a brace.
it's bad quality video. Here it's the good quality, but when I start moving, you can control it via keyboard, but it's also fully controllable via mouse. That's where I'm in a shop. Just pick up the items inside the shop and pay for them. So these are creatures that are on your side. The scenario is that there are 2 kings fighting against each other, and you're one of the king's heroes. And it's a bit like Dota, if anybody has Defense of the Ancients. It's a Warcraft 3 map, and it's a bit like this. The glowing stuff you can see Here the blue glowing towers are defense towers by the enemy. Okay, now it gets real dirty to look at. Okay, here light effects, I added that, but it's all still ASCII.
Looks really nice.
Yeah, I love the aesthetics of that, of this engine. Wait down.
I love the forest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people always mention the forest.
Oh, split screen, I like that.
Okay, that's the info mode. It's paused. Now it's the name mode. No, I died. I added the death screen yesterday so that I have full game to play. That's my solution to the problem you've just mentioned. You can always pause the game and just pull the cursor over beings to get information about them, so you know who's who. And the name mode is also very important, where red names are above creatures on your side and blue names are creatures above the enemy's side. It could be vice versa. I think that would make more sense. Okay. But as you can see, it's yeah, much more is happening in this game than in the other game. But the time I've spent is not even comparable. I think it's about 20th or a 30th of the time I spent on my old project. And yeah, I don't want to say don't plan the design of your roguelike, but just don't start by designing an engine. That's the point I wanted to make mainly. Okay, yeah, I would like to show you the game in real time, not garbled up videos, but I don't know, I have 9
We'll
arrows.
find the part.
Try that first error, I think it was
Okay, you're watching me fixing the arrows.
It's extreme
Okay.
programming.
How many people kind of working on
Signed,
this?
unsigned mismatch. It's just a warning.
Okay.
You're missing a verse in that if.
Left off. Okay, I know. This is. I haven't declared my item because I uncommented it.
Chris, go back to that if. There was a missing verse there.
Well,
Before there was a 4 in an if. Oh no, okay.
Oh, no,
sorry.
no, it is right. It's just the later my item. Is my item a local variable or is that a number variable?
okay, would be dirty. Yep. Okay, so here you can see it. Right, you equip items by either pushing the mouse on this button or right click to unequip it, or pressing the according button, in this case 1 would equip the item, or if it's like here, a scroll of fireflies, which you can check out by entering the inventory and go through the items. Here you can see it's a scroll of fireflies, and if you press 2, he uses it. So there's a default action, not like in many roguelikes where you have to say use and then just choose the item. Okay, here
So the map is randomized?
the map is randomized. Yeah, I didn't want to draw a map which is 250 to 250, so
It looks similar in structure to the last one.
yeah, it looks always similar. It's always 3 lanes,
Yeah.
two bases. That's the enemy base. Oops. You can scroll around like this. That's the enemy base. It's always 3 ways: the woods and your base. But the ways can have a bit different size and direction, and the buildings always are ordered a bit different. It's just I think it's less Aufwand, effort to do it like this than to draw it. I don't know, it might be the other way around. Okay, here in information mode you can check out what the shop has to offer. Not too many items. Here you can see it's on the same field. It's me, Aviel, that's my name, and the item a healing potion. we can buy 2 by just picking them up. Now I'm currently in mouse mode, which means the directional buttons are used to scroll rather than moving the character. If I
Scroll lock.
yeah, right. If I
Maybe use the scroll lock key for that?
no, if I could, yeah. If I leave mouse mode, I can just control my character with the keyboard. Going to pick up health potions. Those 2 T's are the defense tower of my side. An advantage is you can see lights even if they are not in your field of view. There are lights which you can only see if there are, but I think for towers it's important to know, do the towers are still there, or have I destroyed some of them, or do my monsters, or are my towers being attacked?
There are towers and they are huge, so you can see them always.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry, but
So it's even realistic.
Where's the toilet?
Okay, if I just press here, my character is going to move there, which saves me a lot of effort. Okay, here we can see a bug. The tower is a unit, and units are supposed to make place for the king's heroes, but this unit can't move, so I ain't gonna move, so nobody's going to move. So those are rattling archers, which we can check out by scrolling over them. Ranged fighters of the enemy. If I press near them, I'm going to attack them.
Can you go to info mode again, please? Info mode?
Info mode, yeah.
So you don't shift the view when you go to info mode?
No, I should do that, you're right, but yeah.
That's what I always liked about Diablo, is that
Yeah.
sort of transition.
If I'm currently attacking a creature and there's another creature nearby and I'm in auto attack mode, he's going to attack that creature by default. That makes playing a lot easier. Defense towers are very dangerous, so they're doing much damage. I'm drinking the potions, and now you can see the light effects again. Okay, and now I'm dead. So that's basically it. I'm planning to make the game much bigger. Not only one map, but maybe a big scenario. But to show what I have done, it's nice to have a small map where you can get right into combat. So, yeah. Okay, I think that's about it. I showed off enough. Yeah. But I'd like to see some of your games, which you can't see on the internet. For example, Junk Lab. I would like to see that in action if there's something to show. Do you have any questions regarding bad game development?
Not a question, but a remark. You should really try using a version control system.
Yeah.
Because you could roll back to any working version right
Okay.
now, for example.
Setting it up
Okay.
is just
Yeah.
a couple of minutes, or
Okay.
it's not.
And it really gives you freedom when you are coding. You are not afraid to break something.
Yeah.
You can just destroy completely some file
Yeah.
while trying something neat
Okay.
and revert to it later.
And what I like is every time you go to do a commit to say this is the new version, you can find out what the difference is between what you've just done and what the old version was, which is very useful when you think you made this change, but you also temporarily, with double quotes around it, change something else, and you don't accidentally leave debug on, you know, in the version you commit, because it shows up in your list.
Yeah.
And you have that.
Yeah. And
Well, that's only if you back up here. It's a version repository, right? But that's another good point, is if you have more than one computer you develop on, it's very easy to copy it from one machine to the other one. You just merge in between partial things. I work on Power in like 3 different machines.
Okay.
And so on any particular one I can make some changes. You don't have to worry about other parts of changes somewhere else that I need to somehow merge.
Okay. Yeah. So,
You can also just use a free subversion servers on Google Code. set it up in 1 minute. You can access it from every computer that you have.
Or free micro repository on Big Bucket.
Should use them. Do some of you still use text files for what they have to do as to-do lists, or do you all use some sophisticated feature?
I use text files.
Text files, yeah.
That's something someone mentioned it several years ago about doing a done list, not a to-do list.
Okay.
So you
you need a done list as well.
I have a done list down there. It's in
Yeah.
the same file. and it's bigger than the to-do list right now.
Like that was my most motivated thing with Powder. It's
Yeah.
like I switched to like long before I really told people about it, I started releasing it on my website, and I did a weekly release, and I had it done. Well, basically I had the release notes, and the release notes were nearly every time I got something done, I put them into that week's release notes. And then you just publish that every
That's
time.
a motivation,
you have 10 things.
right?
And it's a beautiful motivation because it's 10 separate grammar fixes, but then it looks like you have something.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Also, developer blog. Developer diary. You don't have to publish it, but just reading about your problems, about describing what your problem exactly is, helps you solve it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the problem is that you don't know what the problem is.
Yeah.
And if you sit down and start describing it, you get ideas about how to do it.
That's also a mistake I made with Dungeon Hunter. I wanted to hold it back till I can really present something. And as you could see, there was nothing to present for a long time until I finished my scripting language and my GUI and my editor. And when I finally would have been able to release it, I said to myself, come on, now you have to do a real good game, and that's where I mostly, I mostly discontinued there. What I'm planning to do with Dungeon Hunter is just making one room where you can fight one enemy, and some showing off the game even system. Showing how complicated the game could be, but you're limited to this room. It would be kind of an art project, more or less, because
it has been helpful to release, because it might have made others to jump in. I mean, there are always more people with ideas than people with code. So it would have helped if somebody stepped up and said, this is useful, and could have really triggered your own motivation. So I think releasing is still good. I mean, code is not working.
Yeah.
That's what I find so interesting about the TCOD, the roguelike engine you're now using. Is that's actually, I want to use that roguelike engine myself, because I looked at it and this is beautiful. They somehow, I think we might actually have our first real roguelike engine produced, because lots of people try to write roguelike engines and it's always been the same problem. So,
but this one is just very good. And you might have noticed, the ones of you who had a look at the screenshots of the actual game, the Chronicles of Dorian, that my menu looks mostly the same, but it's not limited to that. Actually, I've tried very hard to make it look like his, because I like his interface very much. I think he's very good at interfaces. Even his blocks look good. So I stole the interface. It's a small game anyways.
Yeah, it's one less thing for the user to learn. They just need to learn that one type of interface for fan-made games.
In the second game you presented, do you have some control over your allies, so the monsters on the side?
I didn't implement that yet, but what I wanted to do is that they choose randomly one of the 3 lanes, and what I wanted to add is that you can change by a simple command like shout the probability of units getting to your way. Right now it is like you have at maximum 50 units, and if you have 50 units, there are no more units being generated, and that happens pretty fast. I implemented this because in a real-time game, frame rate drops pretty fast. You wouldn't notice it if it was turn-based, but since it's real-time, you notice every frame rate drop. So I had to limit it to 50 units. I think 100 would be possible for both sides, but without the limit it looked very good because armies were everywhere and there was a whole lot of action going on, but even on this computer, which is pretty new, it was not possible to play anymore.
So the game will be fairly strategic in the end, right?
Yeah,
Good.
quite a...
Good to see.
And yeah, I forgot to mention it's. I think it's on the edge of still being a roguelike, but it has the elements. It has a randomly generated map. It has classical stuff like the field of view.
The grid.
Yeah, the grid, the ASCII. Even if it's 32-bit color ASCII, it's still ASCII. Yeah. The purists in here will shake their heads. Yeah.
Well, you can just use a monochrome version.
Yeah. I don't know if that would work. It's hard to distinguish the units from the ground sometimes now. That's another problem. If you don't have black background, you're limited. You have to choose either light background and dark units or vice versa. Otherwise you have a problem.
How about using two-color fonts that have the letter and a frame around the letter?
Okay, I could do this so that you can distinguish the units from the ground. Yeah.
Some sort of shadow or light around the letter.
Light would be a possibility. As you can see, I have added light sources, and you can choose every color you want for the lights and move them around like you want.
And so I think that's what you did, but I'm not sure. The color of the light also depends on your distance from it. You know?
No, it depends on the distance from the light source.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It gets weaker as the farther it is from the
from the source. Yes. You can see it here a little bit. I think. I don't know if it's
Yeah, that's something else that you can't really do with cursors because you don't have enough colors.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Although I guess you can also have 256 colors in cursors, but it's so badly supported in most terminals.
Yes.
Practically you can't use it.
Yeah, it wouldn't work in terminal, so it's too bad.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you start to appreciate old roguelike games when you have to play over SSH, over slow connection.
Yeah.
For example, Roach and NetHack display the inventory to the right of the screen because drawing all the spaces takes too much time.
Yeah.
And if you draw the menu on the right of the screen, it's much faster.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think
We're done?
finished.